4 years ago in 2018, I went before Congress and I called on Congress to respect a new generation's interest in crypto and what we weren't yet calling Web 3.0, but this emerging new digital asset world. And I called on Congress to treat it with respect and thoughtfulness and not dismiss it as some sort of short-term fad. And I think that what we heard yesterday in a congressional hearing before the House Financial Services Committee is that Congress is finally starting to listen and take this seriously. Up till now, it's been left to regulators to formulate an official sector response to Web 3.0. And during my time at the CFTC, that response was a very positive, forward-leaning one. Lately, the response has been a much harsher one. I think we've gone from something of a passive-aggressive to an aggressive response from regulators. Certainly, that is the approach of the SEC. This is what I'm expecting to see, that Congress is really going to start thinking about crypto and the emergent 3.0 landscape as a new opportunity to formulate a crypto native response. And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. And it's why I spend a lot of my time visiting with policymakers, because we really do need Congress to step in and develop a balanced response. So what I'm expecting is for legislators to start keeping pace with this innovation and hopefully come up with a new regulatory framework that is much more suitable for this emerging new ecosystem. I think that Congress takes time. So I think what we'll see in 2022 is the beginning of evolution of this response. I think that congressmen and women are getting much further up the curve, and the same is happening in the Senate. And I think that's all for the good. And I think you'll see them pushing back in some quarters, to some degree, against the sort of very regressive approach of the SEC in particular. Crypto has opened up financial inclusion to far more people. It's captured the imagination of far more young people than Wall Street's been able to do in a generation. And I think this approach of the SEC to investor protection that says that basically it's going to protect you from participating in the most exciting new ventures and limit those to just rich and wealthy accredited investors cuts again, that sort of a regressive approach cuts against the very sort of progressive approach that crypto is presented. So I'm expecting Congress to get in the game and begin pushing back against that, I think, very harsh approach out of the regulatory state, out of the SEC. I'm also expecting that 2022 will be the year when you see a much greater advancement of central bank digital currencies, and specifically a digital dollar here in the United States. I think the Fed is going to move much further in this year than they have in the last few years. And quite frankly, the Digital Dollar Project, which I launched several years ago, is going to have a very active 2022 to begin some experimentation and pilot projects to look at what role a central bank digital currency can play in this new evolving marketplace. Not exclusively, because I support the development of all kinds of non-sovereign efforts, but also to make sure that if the United States launches a central bank digital currency, a digital dollar, that it reflects societal values of a free society. I'm hopeful that a free and open society accepts a lot of diversity in its payment systems, in its ability to transfer value. And I hope that the U.S. approach to Web 3.0 is very much like the U.S. approach to Web 1.0, and to let 1,000 flowers bloom and to allow this innovation to take place. But because I do believe, and we're already seeing it around the world, that most of the world's central banks, over 80 of the world's major central banks, are already experimenting with central bank digital currency, because I do believe that ultimately the attractions of this will be such that the United States itself will do this. We launched the Digital Dollar Project to make sure that the values that a free society holds dear, values like economic liberty and privacy and freedom from censorship, are enshrined in whatever digital dollar, whatever central bank digital currency the Fed may decide to roll out in the future.